Hello, friends. You're listening to a clip of the Mostly Harmless Podcast. For the entire episode, please visit mostlyharmlesspodcast.com. When did you find hip-hop? When did you discover that hip-hop aspect of your life?
It was in high school. I'm trying to think of the first group. Well, the very first hip-hop tape I bought was Young MC, Stone Cold Rhyming, which maybe isn't like the one you're supposed to say. You're supposed to be like, my first one was like Cool G Rap or Rakim or something like that.
I mean, it could have been Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, that's right. It could always be worse. I wasn't into Vanilla Ice. I was into Young MC. I still like that tape. I'll stand behind that tape. Actually, what's funny is that we went on to work with Mario C later, and in his bathroom, in his studio, is Mario C, who produced Beastie Boys, but he also worked on, I believe, Bust a Move. Like, in his bathroom was the platinum record for Bust. So I'm like going to the bathroom, in LA in the studio. I'm like, oh, that's the first album I listened to, first hip hop album.
It's all full circle.
Exactly, full circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I heard was just stuff on the radio, like, JJ Fad, Supersonic, and then De La Soul, and so I just kind of got into it probably the way just millions of other people got into hip hop.
Yeah. What was the allure of it?
I think at first I didn't always get it. Like, I would just be like, well, it's just kind of monotonous talking. But I think the rhyme schemes, I was like a syllable person, like, look at when I heard Black Alicious for the first time. I'm like, man, he's doing 5-syllable rhymes. And how could you like these other people how could you like Notorious B.I.G.? That's not a 5-syllable rhyme. I was like super nerdy about it. And I feel like I had to develop later to learn, like, no, there's something called flow, and that can be good too. And there's also storytelling, and there's also this and that. But I think it just, my mind works and thinks in terms of kind of both ideas and then equations and then like playfulness, and all those things are encapsulated in just lyrics. And I've just been a lyrics person more than anything. I never have especially been into the other elements. I have a lot of respect for them, but personally I don't have any ability to, I can't b-boy, I can't DJ, I don't do graffiti, but I just always love lyrics.
Did you have any musical obsessions before hip-hop?
Yeah, I used to do this thing, like, we had one of those tape recorders where you could actually just press play and record and just record from the air. And I had that, and I remember doing these projects where I would just mess with, like, kind of multi-tracking, like, amateur style, like, get 2 cassette tapes, put one in there, and then I'd be like, I remember the first time I did it, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, I say, number sign, that was it. And then I flipped them up, and then I harmonized with number sign, did like a chord,
Nice. Yeah.
Or I actually did Don't Worry, Be Happy. I listened to it and broke it down into the parts, and then I got the cassette players and just did the same thing. I made that whole song, and somewhere I have it, like, me singing Don't Worry, Be Happy. I can't really I don't sound good. Mm-hmm. I can hit some of the notes or whatever, but I don't sound good at all. But I did it, I made it.
How old were you?
I was 16 or 15.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. What were you into, though, earlier, before you found hip-hop? Like,
I was late listening to music, but the first tape I kind of got into was Willie Nelson.
Nice.
Turn Out the Lights, The Party's Over is a song, but what's the album?
I don't know.
No, maybe that is The Party's Over. Whatever one that's on, I was pretty into that, but that was just my dad's tape.
Yeah.
They Might Be Giants. I was pretty hardcore into them. R.E.M., like, a lot of that mid-90s stuff.
Yeah. At what point did you start, like, writing songs and whatnot? Were you writing things before that, like short stories and whatnot?
Yeah, I was into writing. I was into writing poetry and short stories, and I kind of did that. I did some summer camps around that. So yeah, I guess I probably identified as a writer early on. Mm-hmm. And like, I had played piano 7 years when I was a kid, and I'd taken violin for 2 years. And so I kind of had like a musical background, but it was always the rhythm that I gravitated towards. I had a drum set in high school. I wasn't disciplined enough to like learn to tighten the heads and everything, but I loved banging around on the drums. So I don't know, it all kind of, like, it was kind of like lyrics was just like everything I'd been looking for. It was words, it was writing, it was rhythm. Yeah. So once it was probably my senior year of high school, senior year, I started really, in the course of messing around with friends, Stefan and all of our friends would mess around rhyming, and I kept trying it and doing it more here and there, and really got into it,
Yeah. What were those early, songs about?
Well, I can tell that the very first rhyme I wrote was like, I did what I think a lot of people do, where you confuse the form and the art. Mm-hmm. You think, well, because other people rap about this, I have to rap about it. So it was like incredibly sexist. I can't believe it happened that way. But the second rhyme I wrote was about being able to rhyme, you know, and that one I still think is kind of good. And I was playing something on the piano and looping it back and forth. What was it about? There it goes. Like, oh no, the second one was like this kind of like end of the world apocalyptic type thing. It was like da do da da do da do da da do. Hold on to your hats, lock your windows and doors, take the phone off the hook and get ready for war. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it was funny.
Yeah. So hip-hop did have a very big role on your developing adolescence. What would you say were the biggest lessons you learned from that kind of stuff?
Well, that was kind of like comics. It was like trying to kind of figure out the ethics of everything. I remember having this long argument about there was a Black Sheep skit. Funny, we're at the Black Sheep. There was a skit on the Black Sheep album, and they were saying, like, you know, the women were saying, we disagree with you, you know, the sexism in your lyrics, and they said, you know, we don't call you ho, we call you like ho-knees, and so why don't you drop to your knees and get, you know, whatever. And I remember arguing back and forth, like, I was saying that's messed up, and other people were like, no, it's funny, or no, you don't understand where they come from, and I was like, I'd rather listen to people that came from that same area and don't say this kind of stuff. So it's like, you know, we're trying to work out ethics and morality, what we're hearing, and I think that continued, and I started to turn that back towards myself and say, look, I'm a white rapper, I didn't come from the situation that led to this art form, but it's an incredible, beautiful art form, and it feels very personal to me, too, even though I'm miles away from the epicenter. And I'm not dealing with racism and oppression and poverty the way people who started this beautiful movement were and are. And so I had, in college, this sort of struggle of like, well, is this really appropriate for me to be doing this? And I just knew the answer couldn't be no, because I loved it too much, and that felt like a waste of everything. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I need to really take seriously what I'm hearing, and I need to address those issues. And, you know, I have a song where I even say, like, you know, I'll be an activist. That's like, I just decided that in that song. And then I had to figure out what it meant to be an activist. So